Okay, so my name's Ben Murphy. I'm playing Grand Host of Nagash. My army's built mainly around Nagash and making the most of his command ability. So spamming the ignore battle shock, reroll ones to save, reroll ones to hit on big units of ghosts, so they never run away, bog you down, and then I outgrind the opponent. And the trick that we've got in the list this year is we've taken the Luminary Rod as an artifact. So when I go second, at the end of their turn one, I can do a 9-inch line, D3 mortal wounds on my own unit, use that to break coherency, kill off half the unit of Grimghast, and then at the start of my turn one hero phase, they all grow back into line, so they conga out 12, 24 inches forward, so I can get turn one charges that nobody ever expects. Which
it's a dirty trick.
So far mixed results. Good on theory.
You say
you can use.
The only reason it wouldn't work, you faced 120 Grimghast, right? The only time it didn't work was 120 Grimghast.
And I like to think it would have worked if I hadn't made a 5-inch charge. But it's hard when they got 120 Grimghast, they got plenty to leave on all the objectives and still attack you with. So,
yeah, that wasn't great, was it?
Other than that, it's been a good weekend so far. Yeah. It's hard when your other death lists are playing Nagash when I know all your spells and can use them all against you, which was the bane of the Nighthaunt player.
Cool. Hi, I'm Leo Rausen. I'm the team captain for Team Fiction. I'm running Dreadwood this year. Last year I was running Change Host. This year I thought that 1-drop is better than a 3-drop. So Dreadwood is built around basically the two premises. So it's a 1-drop that has a bit of chaff. It has 6 Kurnos with sides, which is the main hammer. And then it's Alariel, it's Drycha with Anti-Horde, and 2 branch traits, one of which has Precarious Crown, which is an item that helps you deal with hordes. The main crux of the list is that you almost always get to go first, and you can, if your opponent has made any mistakes in their deployment, you can just alpha them off on turn 1. If they have deployed really defensively, you just set up wildwoods everywhere, and you stop them from moving. They have to charge through wildwoods, they die, they hit -1 to hit Dryads, who are battle shock immune from Inspiring Presence. So turn 1, for example, I faced Arcan. There was a 6-inch gap. So 6 Kurnos went in, killed Arcan turn 1. It was game over after that. Meanwhile, Drycha soloed a unit of 40 skeletons as did Alariel. So that was a solid start. So my game 4 was against the Hagnar, who played really defensively. So I just put woods everywhere, and they couldn't move anything. And this was exactly. So this was Places of Arcane Power, and the Wildwoods gaps aren't large enough for a Cauldron to fit through. So basically his Cauldron that needed to score was stuck in his deployment zone. But yeah.
It's the versatility of the list, I think, that makes, because you can alpha something off, yeah. But if they bunker up massively to protect against the alpha, you tag them with a Dryad on the corner, exactly. And they can never move. Or it takes them 3 turns to clear your stuff, and you've scored every objective in the meantime.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, foolishly play Dreadwood as like a pure alpha. I think Leo plays it completely differently. It's all about board control, and it's all about really, really precise measurements and making sure there's nowhere for anyone to pop up with deep striking, and they're only hitting ever what he wants him to hit. He plays it like, the first turn is very, very important. It takes a long time. If you can get that perfect setup, then it just shuts down so many opponents. I think often when I look over at the tables and see Leo's setup, it just looks like it's game over at turn 1 like every time.
Basically, yes. So so the only game where it didn't work is when I misplayed against Hagnar, where I went the French Hagnar list, which has a lot of models, and I just charge in to an area where there are too many models that could hit back in the hero phase. And I hadn't quite grasped, he had 2 command points to spend for hero phase pylons. But typically, so I love playing as anything that deep strikes, because you can literally control the entire board, so it kind of set up anywhere except their deployment zone. So Stormcast typically is a hard loss, as is... I haven't never played Idoneth, but in theory they could never go anywhere with their eels if they start off board.
He's mapped out exactly where he can put all his units of 5 sprites and summon Dryads and use the pre-game moves and teleports to cover the entire board.
Yeah, so there's nowhere on the board.
Draw the map.
Yeah, so you have to draw the map, basically.
Leo's really good at the pre-game. He has you should see our our prep and our spreadsheets, our matchup process. He even learned Norwegian so that so he could overhear our first round opponents.
That was supposed to be a secret. Yeah, no, but what about you, Ben?
So I'm Benjamin Sava, and I play the Cunning Rook, which, contrary to popular belief, doesn't win games by rolling buckets full of dice at people. It wins games by board control. I think it's because it was the first ever live tournament that was streamed was Warlords, wasn't it? And everybody saw Seb play that list and just roll buckets full of dice. And Cunning Rook just got such a bad reputation from that. But I think the one-drop version, again, it plays similar to Dreadwood. You cast Hand of Gork on one unit. You cast Cogs, which gives +2-inch movement to the Cunning Rook move. So you've got a 7-inch move, and then you've got a 12-inch move. So you go in 19 inches with a unit of 30. With a unit of 30 orcs who have 32mm bases. That covers almost all the boards. And then you've got 3 other units that can go 7 that they can run. So you can just shut down everything. And yes, it does roll a lot of dice, but I think it's often difficult to bring all of that power to bear because of the way that I play it is stretched out across the board. I never have them a clump, so I'm never rolling 90 dice at one unit. I'm maybe rolling 7 or 8 are shooting over there, 7 or 8 are shooting over there, just picking things off. But it's just so good at objectives. You've got loads of bodies. They're 2 wounds each. They can be almost anywhere they want. You can ring around your characters on the character missions so that no one can get to them. And obviously Hand of Gork makes everything fly as well, so they can go over their own screens. They can ignore terrain. It's just such a flexible army in terms of movement and objective play that you really don't need the dice. Like I've taken this to several tournaments now, and I often score less than 2,000 kill points over the whole tournament. And it's looking about the same here. Probably there's been games when I've scored less than 500 almost every time. So it doesn't just shoot things off, and I try not to just make it a dice rolling exercise and play the objectives. I think it's a really fun army.
It is now really, even really better flexible. At just shooting stuff off.
It is much better right now because you can spam the command ability. So every 5 or 6 to hit, if you've got the Brutal Beast Spirit spell, becomes however many command points you have spare. My list uses Aether Quartz Brooch as well, so you can roll 1 dice on a 5 up, you get it back, so you get them another +1. So I had one game where it was 4 extra attacks for every 5 or 6 to hit. So I think I generate 96 extra attacks. That was a game where I had to shoot. That was against the French, against the 120.
He doesn't have to shoot always, but when he does,
shoot these off,
he shoots.
But I think from 200 shots and re-rolling 1s to hit, I killed 5 Phoenix Guards. So yeah, I think potentially team tournaments are the future of competitive AOS. I think it's just the format works a lot better. You can design lists that are a little bit more left field because you know that you're going to be able to a certain extent, you're going to be able to choose your matchups. So I think you just generally get to see much more interesting, much more diverse armies, and I think that's what excites most people about the game or most people in the competitive scene is creative list writing, and team tournaments gets to showcase that better than anything else, I think.
And it's just more fun because you're down with all your mates. So you always have that, even at singles event, you come down with groups of friends to play. But when every round you're so involved with all your teammates on the selection process, discussing all the strategies for the matchups before the game, so it makes it much more of a fun outing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And you're invested then, even when if you get the really good matchup that you want and you lose your game in, or you lose or win your game in the first half an hour, you can then go and watch the other games. There's still something there to engage with rather than just floating around in a hotel lobby for 2 hours. Yeah, it's great. It's a really good format. Yeah, I want to see loads more team tournaments. Yeah, I really do.
Definitely. And I mean, if I can. So just from the perspective, so last year we came here, I was the team captain for this. I was team captain of Warhammer World Event earlier this year. And then now here, obviously. And the matchup process actually makes it a lot of fun. Because you actually you have to think about, so on the first level you have to think about what do your list have to avoid. So Nagash doesn't want to face something that can just shoot it off turn 1, for example. So Cunning Rock, for example. And then, so you have to think first those, but then you think, okay, so what do they not want to face from us? So it becomes a very involved process where you're thinking, okay, so they probably put this down, so we will instead not do what we would want to do, but we'll actually put these ones to throw their game off, even though that means that then one of our matchups will be weaker. So it becomes a whole other minigame that it's just a lot of fun.
They can win or lose the round quite easily.
They definitely win. Yeah, they win or lose the rounds, definitely. So it's a lot of fun. I hope there's a lot more as well.
I think We've already played them, but I want to play the French again.
Yeah,
I want revenge.
That is true.
This is the third tournament we've been to as fiction, and we've played the French teams round 1 in the first tournament where we came to Bloodtithe last year and lost to them. We played them the first round at Warhammer World and lost to them. And we played them the second round this time and lost to them. And it's the only round in all the other matchups. We won all of our rounds against everybody. That's the only team we ever lose against.
I think
we'll have to wait till
lulled them into a false sense of security
Quite
now,
so.
so we're ready for.
We've kept our strategies hidden for the first 2 games, you see. So now when it really matters, we're ready to go. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to draft against them because you look at their list. So this year, for the benefit of people who haven't seen the list, so one of the lists is 2 Phoenixes and 120 Phoenix Guard who are all Battleshock immune. Then there's 120 Grimghast with a Coven Throne and a Necromancer who can just come back to life for 1 CP. Then you have a double Shadow Strike, which is an interesting pick. And I talked to the team captain, and he said it's because he wants to understand Seraphon better. But double Shadow Strike has amazing board control with Skinks, and it can kill, obviously, loads of chaff with Ripperdactyls. And then finally you have Hagnar with 50 Sisters and 60 Sisters, 50 Witches and 60 Sisters Slaughter. So I look at that and I'm like, well, what can beat any of those reliably?
Thankful.
Yes, Thankful would have helped a lot, but unfortunately we didn't have enough time to practice lists with that. But
they're all fantastic players as well. The French dudes, they're all like ETC team players, and I mean, I think they're the only people who have done more prep than Leo as well. You know, they've got a suitcase with all of the battle tomes in, and the captain comes around and whatever their team is playing, he just brings them the battle tome, and he brings them this list, like an A4 spreadsheet of how to beat each army, and they've done serious amounts of prep as well. So they're always fun to play because they play
come in
competitively
prepared.
and they come here prepared.
Yeah.
And you know you're going to get really tight, really close games all the way through. So I really enjoy playing them. They're wicked guys, and it's always a really good game.
Yeah,
but
I think for this tournament, if this because we obviously can't face them anymore.
Yeah.
Got 4 Masters, 1 Cup.
Yeah, I want to play Dan Bradshaw's list.
Exactly.
I was running my mouth about it on Twitter, wasn't I? saying it's boring. So I've got if we get them in the next round, which there's a good chance. I think we'll get them on Marauders. I've got to play it. I've got to beat it, haven't I?
Yeah.